I'm Kara Ray, founder of the Powerful and Uncensored Entrepreneurs. I'm a mother, stepmother to 3 beautiful children. I'm a wife and a proud entrepreneur. I'm a mindset coach specifically for the powerful and ambitious online female entrepreneurs who desire to create wealth and abundance in all areas of their life. The Powerful and Uncensored Mompreneur podcast is for the ambitious women and mothers who are ready to rise together and empower one another. Get plugged in each week for unfiltered and uncensored conversations between myself and industry leaders who are here to support you. They have unwavering points of views and empower women to believe in themselves. We will be discussing business, spirituality, sexuality, energy, strong points of views, manifestation, and what I like to call breaking the stigma topics, conversations that will no longer be silenced. This is a safe place to reclaim your power of being a woman. Let's dive in. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Powerful and Uncensored Mompreneur podcast. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing, my goodness, if I could speak, Samantha Siffring. And so I just want to give you guys a little bit of background about Samantha. So Samantha is a business coach and she's also the host. So she has her own podcast. This is called the Badass Mother Podcast. So Samantha started her journey as a coach after she was struggling to find her identity after becoming a mother. So she is extremely passionate about helping other moms build their businesses from home. And so welcome to the podcast, Samantha. It's so nice to chat with you.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I want to discuss with you because I know that you were talking about how when you became a mom that you kind of felt like this identity loss and that you weren't really sure what this like next step was for you. Would you mind talking to our listeners about what that looked like for you and what you felt like and a few things that you've gone through, especially as a mom, because a lot of the listeners that I have on this podcast are moms. And when I first started my business was completely geared to like women and mothers, empowering mothers, and it was balancing business and babies. And so I would just really love to hear your side of this and what you believe to be true and what worked for you.
Yeah. So before babies, I had always been that kind of person that was achieving like before it was normal. Like I was the youngest to do this or that or whatever it was. And I had never really envisioned motherhood for myself. It was not on my radar really. And so then I found myself as a stay-at-home mom to a baby and then shortly after another baby and was just really thrown off because that wasn't what I pictured for myself at all. That wasn't what I had been working towards. It wasn't what I imagined. And I definitely wasn't one of those women who had always dreamed of becoming a mother. I think when I was in 8th grade, I told my parents, like I sat them down and had a very serious conversation with them about how I would never have children because I didn't want them to like have their hopes up. And then I ended up having kids really young. So it was an identity crisis. And I felt like I couldn't see maybe like the light at the end of the tunnel of raising young babies and young children. It just kind of felt like this is my life now. This is not really what I thought I was going to do in life. I don't know what to do with this. Also, it's not fulfilling to me. I love my kids, but I don't love this being at home with them while they cry and puke and need diaper changes and snacks and all of that, you know? So I did feel really lost for a while and also struggled with mental illness and all of that during that time. Looking back, it's like, wow, I'm a survivor for getting through that for so many different reasons. But similar to you, I got involved in a network marketing business. I had tried some other businesses around the same time. I had a Etsy shop. I had a blog, just kind of trying to find my thing. And the network marketing business was the thing that had taken off. So I was involved with that for a few years before I ended up finding coaching. And my educational background is in counseling. So I met another therapist who had become a life coach, and she hired me to work in her business. She trained me, she gave me clients. It was a really nice way to get started in coaching. So that's kind of how I found my way. It was just exploring one opportunity after another until I found the right one.
Well, and I think that's important, is that not everything, like trying different things is sometimes is a part of the process. You know, we go through, just as how we continually grow and we learn something new every day. It's the same thing of if we're going and moving into a different career, or when, like when you were talking about not necessarily enjoying all the, you know, getting the snacks and, you know, having to change all the bums and to do and on all the puke and do all those things. I remember when I first became a mom, my husband had two other children, and so I had two stepchildren, and then I had a little baby, and I thought I could do it all with my husband working away from home and a lack of sleep and everything else that engulfed motherhood and or the pain after giving birth to a child. And I was overwhelmed, completely overwhelmed. And then I personally had struggled with postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety and a ton of different things. And it's I literally had like an identity crisis where I looked at myself and I'm like, what am I doing? Why did I think I should be a mom? This is absolutely crazy. I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. And this is a lot harder than I thought it was. Like, this isn't just like a cakewalk. And I remember so many people when I went into like, when I decided I was going to have my own coaching business and I was going to work as an entrepreneur, I remember so many people looked at me and they're like, you need to do one thing at a time. Why don't you just be a mom first? Being a mom doesn't end. I don't just have a child and then raise them until they're 5 and I'm like, okay, you're good on your own. No, or even if they're 18 and move out, you're still a parent and you're still a mom. So did you ever struggle with anybody judging you going into entrepreneurship as a mom? Was anybody, I guess, did you have any like negative feedback in regards to that?
I feel like there's always negative feedback, you know, whether it's like specific to a mom who then tries to work, or whether it is specifically about whatever you're trying to do. Like, you know, I think coaching is BS or network marketing's a scam or whatever it is. Like, you're going to find
Yeah.
a negative critic for anything that you're doing. I think though, by the time I started my coaching business, I was really in a different frame of mind than I had been earlier. I remember when I first started blogging that a family member had said something about blogs, and like everybody has blogs now and they think they have these unique ideas and everybody already knows that. It's not unique at all. Like, she just like went on a rant about how terrible blogs were. And it really held me back with blogging. And I really then, like, every time I sat down to write a post would be like, is this going to be unique enough for that person? And now I look back, I'm like, oh, that's sad. I should have just like written whatever the hell I wanted. But, you know, those comments
Yeah.
can really get in your head.
100% they can. And it can really, it's like the limiting beliefs of others. I remember I used to be in a space where I constantly listened to everybody else's beliefs on what I should and shouldn't do, and or I'd ask for validation. That was actually something that I was discussing with my coach this week, about how I was constantly needing validation from somebody. That somebody had to tell me that I was on the right path, that I was doing the right thing, that I was being a right mom, that I was being a right friend. And I don't need validation from anybody. Nobody's opinion. There's that quote that everybody is, oh, now I can't even remember the quote. I'm sitting here and I'm like, hey, there's that quote, guys. Now I can't remember it. Others' opinions of you are none of your business. That's it. That's it. And it's so true, because nobody's opinion of you matters, because it's your life. I was listening to somebody else. They had made a post about how if somebody isn't going to follow you, you can't force them to stay. Like, it's this like let go of control, to let go of that need to constantly need somebody by your side, because that's not always going to happen and people are going to grow out of you. And sometimes that's unfortunate, and those relationships can feel, you know, heartbreaking when they end. But this is just a fact of life, that not everybody is meant to be at that end stage with you. Not everybody's supposed to go there. And so I don't know. I like that you brought up how who was it again that was about your blog? It was a family member, wasn't it?
It was a family member. Yeah. It was an in-law, not super close, but
Yeah. I was like, I know she said family, but now I'm like, what did she say? And that honestly, when I first started, my mom's been an entrepreneur her whole life. So I remember she worked a 9 to 5 for a little bit, but she's always been very just like creative, high spirited. And then she was a business coach. And so I lived in a home where my mom was home all the time. My mom created her own schedule and she did her own thing and she wrote her own rules. And then I lived with my father because my parents were separated and he worked 9 to 5. And I remember he would get so frustrated at the fact that my mom could just drop everything and do what I needed at that time. And he wasn't able to do that. And it caused like a rift in their relationship almost, but almost to like how I believed in what entrepreneurship could be, that it was, and I know he didn't mean that because he just was very unsure about what it actually was. He didn't know how she made the income or how she did it because it wasn't this like blueprint XYZ. Here's the amount of money you're going to make. Here's what you're going to do. Here's how many hours you're going to work. She didn't have a set schedule. She had her computer and her phone with her everywhere she went. And so it was one of those topics growing up with my family that my mom was an entrepreneur. And I was like, this word, like, what is an entrepreneur? And there was almost like this animosity between my family because of this like unknown, but they didn't actually want to know about it. And I think that's another thing that people run across from too, is that there's a lot of people along the line that you'll meet, even in the online space, that don't understand what you're doing, and they won't. And that's okay. Like, it is 100% okay that they just will not get it. I've already talked to a few people. They're like, I just don't get what you do. I'm like, well, I don't understand why you love what you do, but I don't question it. Like, I don't at all.
We're not like going to the engineers of the world being like, how can you stand this?
Right? Not at all. I was actually talking about this slightly on another podcast episode when I was saying that I had a discussion with my husband, because he was like, when are you going to make money? When are you going to do the damn thing? Like, when is this going to work for you? And when is it going to go? Like, when is it going to take off? And I just said, I don't know. I said, I'm doing the work every day, and I'm reaching out and I'm connecting, and I'm really, really putting, like, I'm passionate about this. So I know it's going to take off. It just might take a year, and that's okay. Or it might take a month. Like, I don't know. And I said, but I don't question you with what you choose to do and the love that you have for crops, because he works in the crop industry and like with crop insurance. I'm like, I can't understand those numbers to save my life. I said, but I love you and I know that you love it. So all the power to you. And I will just love you from afar doing crop insurance, because I ain't going to do that. but I think it's just really important that you might not understand it, but somebody might not understand what you're doing. And that's okay. It's just, once again, there's opinions of views on your business.
Totally. Yeah. I just had a client who launched a VA business, and then her sister, who is like pretty high up in a large company, was like, I think you need to drop assistant from your title. That means you're going to be low paid. People are not going to respect you as much. And the client and I kind of had to talk about it. Like, she's so far removed from the online world, but like those of us in it are like, oh, we know what a VA is.
Mm-hmm.
Like they can make a range of incomes. It's not like a minimum wage office.
No, they're not set.
Or something like that. Yeah, well, people have no clue.
No, it's just like, as a coach, we're not set as just this one X income. Like, my coach, I remember chatting with her where she had gone from making like $2,000 a month to now like $22,000, $24,000 in a month. And it's like, it's possible. She had a baby. Like, her first massive month was the month that she brought her newborn baby home from the hospital. Like, you can't tell me that you can't do it and have like this massive 6-figure business doing everything that you absolutely love, and not alone. You don't have to do it alone. Like you were just saying, like a virtual assistant. People hire those. They're there, and people pay really good money for people who can do that job, because I'm no, like, I will hire that out every damn time, because there's things that take away from how I can give to my clients or what I can give to other people that they can do, and my virtual assistant can do that, and it's beautiful. So like, I think everything is needed on different, and it's just, I think it's in regards to if you're passionate about it, because you can tell when somebody's passionate about what they do and they love what they're doing compared to they're just doing it to make money. there's a
Mm-hmm.
big difference there too. And I think there's a big difference in the coaching industry as well. And especially now, I want to talk about this because like when I first had my daughter and I was searching for a coach and I was still at a very vulnerable stage, I was I felt like a vulture. Not a vulture. I felt like I was like almost like dead meat sitting there and a bunch of people were like coming at me being like, you need to work for me and you need to come in and I'll work for you and I'll change your life. And it I was just like thrown off a little bit through the coaching industry at first, where I felt like I was like slim pickings, that somebody was just like, oh, I can do this and I can just get her because she struggled. And I felt like my struggle was being abused. And so I don't know if you ever experienced like any of this during your, like when you first started, or if you've ever had this experience, your clients have ever had this experience. But for me as a mom, if you're a coach, like do not abuse the fact that a mom has gone through something in her life or is struggling with an identity just to get a client. Like that was a huge moment for me. So I'm a little passionate about that, but I'll let you speak on that before I go on like a big rant about it.
Yeah, I feel like I've been really fortunate that I think every coach that I've been involved with, whether I decided to work with them or not, has just been so valuable to me and really generous with their time and resources and all of that. And so I think my like early experience in business was totally different than that. But it is something I see, and I feel like I've been seeing it a lot. Something about the new year, like everyone's confessing like bad coaches that they worked with and horror stories. And it is really sad to see and to know like there's people out there where it's just about like getting to the yes. Like I'm trying to get a yes by money and then I don't really care what happens later. It's just not how I operate my business. It is not something that would feel good to me. Even if like in total good faith, I had a client sign up and then things weren't going well together, I would not continue that. You know, I would not be
Yep.
like, great, I got my payday. Like that's not my mindset or approach at all. And I don't think it's a recipe for a sustainable business either.
No, I completely agree with you because I believe in the coaching industry, like your your client isn't just a number. They're a person, they're valuable, and to respect them is huge. You're there to support them to bring out their answers, and if you're just looking to get money out of this person, then you're not in it for the right reasons at all. Because coaching is you're supposed to be there to support them. Like of course, we all love to make money. Like that's just if I literally sat here and said, "No, I don't like making money." I love making money, but I love making money doing what I'm passionate about because people love that I'm doing what I'm passionate about, not because it's bogus, not because I just need to make to get by, because there's been months where I've had no income and I still show up every damn day and I still do the things because I love what I'm doing. So the amount of dollars behind what I make in a month doesn't matter to me. It's of course lovely when there's money there, but I think as a mom, like when I was talking about my experience before, I had struggled in the beginning trying to find what my best option was, and I just felt that someone was trying to give me like a promise that they were going to fix everything and take everything away. And as a coach, you cannot promise somebody something. You can't,
Mhm.
because you're not entitled. You cannot control what they're going to do. You can't control the outcome. And so when someone was like, oh, I can promise you that we're going to get through this, this, and this, I'm like, yeah, but are we? Are you sure? Because you're not me. So I don't know how you can promise me what I'm going to do, because like I have to want to do it. And so it put me off a little bit. And then when I met my coach that I have now, who I've been working with for almost a year, it was like no questions asked. I wasn't treated as just like a number. I was treated as a person and I was valued. And even though she wasn't a mom at the time, she was there. And I think that's important. And so because I struggled really bad. So postpartum depression is not a fun topic, and being a mom can be really difficult. And so I think it's important, like as a mom, to just if you're in the coaching industry, to make sure that you find someone that is just completely genuine, not
Mhm.
full of crap.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I always give people advice like just work with a coach, like whether it's me or not, doesn't really matter. Like find somebody who is a good fit for you. And now I've been seeing all of these horror stories and I'm now kind of like, I don't know, like I need to change my advice and make sure people understand, like do some due diligence, make sure this person's legit, make sure they are who they say they are. You know, if they're making promises, red flag.
Yes.
If there's a money back guarantee, then great, you know, promise away.
Yeah, right.
But otherwise, like we really can't guarantee the results. And sometimes people ask me that on consult calls, not very often, but every once in a while I'll get somebody who wants me to guarantee a result. And it's a hard conversation of like, I can tell you what's happened for my other clients. I can tell you, you know, what those results have been and what the averages have been and all of that. But I can't guarantee any of that for you because everyone's different.
Well, and I think it puts the responsibility back onto the client to be able to create this, like the results that they ultimately want. Because like I've said, like I'm here when I'm working with moms or if I'm working with clients who aren't moms, I don't tell them like I can figure out your problems for you. You can come to me and you can talk to me about them, but ultimately you're the one who has to take action towards, the resolution for it. We can discuss how to get there, but I can't force you to have a tough conversation, to like put money to do anything. I can't control that. You ultimately have the decision to do that. And I think it's important, like as a mom, that if you're feeling like you want to be at home with your kids, because that was the biggest thing for me is I wanted to be home, but I didn't just want to be a stay-at-home mom. I didn't want to just be classified as that. And I am not putting down any moms who choose to just stay at home, because all the power to you and love the hell out of you that you want to do that. But that was not me, like at all. I'm like, I need to make an income. I want to provide. I don't want to just sit here. Like I need to do something else with my life. And I'm not saying that being a stay-at-home mom is just sitting there, because holy Jesus, I do a crap ton of things in a day at home. And so, oh my gosh, once again, praise to the women who are home all the time, because I go stir crazy in my home. But like, if you're ever wanting to just reach out and do something different, it's okay. Like it is okay to do that and to not want to do anything. Like, I don't know. You can tell me your opinion on that. But I think that it's important that if you, as a mom, that if you don't want to just be home with your children, you don't have to be. Like you ultimately get to make that decision. And it's okay if you don't want to just be home. Like I've been judged by other women and other moms because I didn't want to just stay home with my kids, because they were like, oh, is that not enough for you? I'm sorry, no. It's not enough for me, and that's okay. I love my kids. That doesn't mean I love them less, but it's not enough for me. So,
yeah, I felt the same. And I really struggled there for a while trying to figure out like, how can I set up a working situation where I'm getting paid enough to pay for daycare for the time that I'm not with them. And that working situation's pretty hard to find, is what I discovered. So, and especially when you have three, I have three kids, and it was just like, wow, that costs a lot of money and there's no job that will pay me that much. So I think for me, it was kind of out of necessity. Like if I didn't have three kids, if I just had the one, then I might have just gone out and got a 9 to 5 or something. But the fact that I had to kind of problem solve and figure out, how do I make some money from home? And, the options for me were being an entrepreneur, basically. And I always thought, like, once the kids go back to school full time, I will, go back to work and find some job or whatever. And this year, all three of mine are in school full time, and I am not out finding a job because I'm working full time at home.
And I love that, because because I have two stepchildren and I have a little one who's a year and a half, and then we're trying to have another. It's the two older ones, like we have split custody, so it's 50-50. And so we have them like half the time. And it's when they're here, like when we have three kids, it can be a lot, especially trying to balance between my husband and extracurriculars and everything else that we do in a day, making sure we prioritize ourselves, like our relationship, because that's huge. And that self-care, I believe prioritizing yourself every day is extremely important. And sometimes like we have to sit there with our schedules and go back and forth and say, okay, what's working this week? What isn't working this week? And at first, when I first started my business, I didn't have that communication with my husband. So we were not necessarily arguing, but we just weren't on the same page. And so now, anytime I set up a podcast interview, anytime I have a meeting, like my husband knows about it because he might have hockey. Like we write in each other's schedules now. So he has a schedule that he takes and I have a schedule and we write everything down. And if something was accidentally missed, then we know like, okay, my bad. That was my bad if I made that mistake. But then we have to like figure things out together. And it's made life so much better. Even like 30 minutes before me and you were coming on this call, my husband calls and he's like, I have to run and I have to go pick something up. Do I have enough time? I'm like, yes, honey, you still have 30 minutes. We're good. He's like, are you sure? I'm like, well, is it going to take you 30 minutes? Because if it's going to take you 30 minutes, then wait. But if it's not, go do your thing. Like, I'm fine. And so I think it's important just to communicate. Like my husband, he had this picture in his mind that I was going to be a stay-at-home mom and that he was going to be the provider. He wanted to be the provider. He didn't want me to have to worry about that. And I love him to pieces for wanting to provide me with something like that and for me not to have to stress financially. But I remember looking at him one day and I just said, like, I love you beyond words for the fact that you just want to take all that stress and make it like really easy. I said, but I want to provide too. Like, I don't want to just be this, I don't want to just lean on you for everything. Like, I want to provide and I want to have something behind me and I want to build something. And he was confused with that at first until I explained it to him. Like, it's not me leaving you behind. This is me doing something with you, and being home is also to support you because you want me to be home. I said, but like, I need to do something else that's going to make me feel fulfilled, that I'm going to be passionate about. I said, because my kids, I'm totally the mom that needs a little bit of a little time out myself sometimes for my kids. I love them, but like they have their own little minds, and trying to control it just doesn't work with kids. Like they have a mind of their own. So like me trying to sit there and control everything they're doing drives me nuts. So I have to like walk away. Like my stepson woke up this morning absolutely miserable. I was like, you're having a meltdown over chocolate milk? I'm like, go downstairs to your room. Like, no, I'm not going to buy the dang chocolate milk anymore. If we're going to wake up in the morning and you're going to be miserable for having a small cup of chocolate milk. Like, oh, there's just things that I just, as a mom, love them, but it's not a cakewalk.
It's so true. And I think it's really empowering for a woman, for a mom, to be able to create her own income. I have met a lot of women who their husband provides, but it's a bad marital situation and they want to leave and they can't because they don't have money. Or even little things like, I feel like I can't go to Starbucks without asking my husband if it's okay or whatever. Like these little things that I think just making your own money has so many benefits. And then I think it's good for the partner to know like, oh, she has so much money. She could leave if she wanted, but she's staying. She must love me for more than my money.
Right? That's, just my husband was previously married prior to myself, and she stayed at home with the kids and everything. And there was a dynamic there that became very toxic. And that wasn't something that I wanted to have in our marriage. That wasn't what I wanted at all. So like for people to have a little bit more background as to why I just didn't want to, there was a lot of past and a lot of history that was very hurtful for my husband. And I wanted to make sure that he knew that he was also provided for. Like I didn't want him to just feel like that he had to be the provider. This this thing we put on the male race, that they have to provide and do all the things and make sure that we're all taken care of and they can't cry. My goodness, my husband provides, and he's the most emotional man I've ever met in my life. And I love him to pieces for that, because he is. Like, he's strong, he's capable, he's independent, and he cries. Like, heck yes, he cries. I love that. I don't want him to cry, guys. I'm not saying, yes, cry, but the fact that he can cry, but the fact that he can shed some tears is just, it's really moving for me. And it makes me feel more connected to my husband, that he can embrace his emotions like that and that he can talk that way, because I know so many people, so many men, sorry, not people, but men that feel like they can't, or they feel they can't show that emotion around their significant others. And I don't want my husband to feel that way. And I want our kids to know that, and especially my stepson, that it's okay to show your emotions, that you don't have to hide them. So I don't know, being a mom as a mother in an entrepreneur world is extreme, oh, I can't even speak again, is an extreme blessing, because we're not only, like, even for you, you're empowering other women, but our little ones are watching what we're doing. And so ultimately that is also empowering our children to believe in what they're doing, no matter what. Like, that's something I tell my kids every day. No matter if someone tells you that they think you can't do it, do you want to believe them that they think you can't do it? No. If you want to do it, then you'll do it and you'll be able to get it done. And it's like, even my kids ask me questions now. They're like, who was the lady that you were talking to? Or like my daughter today was like, can I go on an interview with you? I'm like, oh, sweetheart, I love you to pieces. I wanted to tell her yes so bad, but I'm like, we're going to end up talking about, I said, how about we do an interview together, and I'll interview you on the podcast and I'll ask you some questions. She's like, oh, I can be on the podcast. Like, yes, your 8-year-old self will come on the podcast. We will talk all 8-year-old things. Like,
my 9-year-old's life goal is to be on my podcast.
That's so cute. I said to her this morning, I was like, let's do a podcast interview together. I said, I don't care if we end up talking about Barbies or like whatever it is that you want to talk about, we can talk about, and then I will post it. She's like, are you lying to me? No, I'm not lying to you. Why would I lie to you? I love them to pieces, but now because she couldn't come on our interview today, I'm going to be doing another podcast interview with my daughter.
So fun. They're sweet.
They are really sweet. So, okay, so I want to talk to you. How long have you had your podcast for now? Like, how many has that been? Because I know you have quite a few episodes out.
Yeah, I think it's been like 6 months now. I started at the end of June.
Okay. And then, so what was the whole, that push, that drive that made you feel like you wanted to create a podcast?
I have loved podcasts for a long time. I started listening to them maybe in like 2004 or 5, or no, 2014 or 15. I know they were around probably in 2004 or 5, but I was not technology savvy enough. So 14, 15, and I had always thought that I wanted to have one, but I thought, ooh, I have a really terrible voice, which is funny because I get compliments on my voice almost every week now. So that just like,
you don't have a terrible voice. You have a very beautiful voice.
It just goes to show the stories we have about ourselves that are 100%. Totally based in just lies. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the things that stopped me. And I also was just like, well, I don't really know what I could commit to or what topic. So I just kind of sat on it for a while. And then around this time last year, I was like, okay, I'm ready to have one. I'm going to have one. And I started talking to a friend of mine who already had one. And we were kind of talking about ideas of a podcast we could do together. And it kind of fell through. My business really started taking off. So then I started to think maybe I need to do a business-oriented one. And she ended up being my editor. So we just kind of started talking through that and started pushing forward. I wanted to launch it on Mother's Day. And as you heard, I launched it at the end of June. So not quite right, but it happened and it exists. And now it comes out every week. And I'm so thankful for it. I love my podcast.
I've listened to a few episodes on your podcast. I just couldn't remember what number you were at on the podcast, because I love listening to podcasts, but I'm very much of a person who loves listening to things from the beginning, even though you don't have to when it comes to podcasts. Yeah. Like a lot of the times you can just listen to whatever, but I'm very much a little bit of a, like, I call myself a freak in regards to podcasts. Like I'm listening to one podcast that has over like 140 episodes and I'm on like episode 10 and they keep releasing them. I'm like, I am never going to catch up.
Well, I did that with one that just hit 250. I started listening to her a few years ago and she already had like a good 100 or more, you know, like probably close to 200 or something. And I think I've listened to almost every episode now. So you can do it. I believe in you.
Oh, I believe in myself too. I'm just, sometimes those numbers, I'm like, no, I need some more time. Don't release another one. And so you said it's all like business oriented. That's what you kind of went towards. And so I love that you have an editor. I don't have an editor.
Oh my God. Yeah. If you want one, I will hook you up. She's amazing. I would not have a podcast without her. I still really don't love the sound of my own voice. So I don't listen to any of my recordings or anything. It's so weird. Maybe it'll be the next like coaching thing that I work on, but I also think my business works fine without me listening to my voice ever. So maybe I'm good.
Well, even with, I don't have an editor. I do everything for my podcast on my own, but that's how I learned how to do it. I remember I was working with my coach and she just kind of worked through everything that she had gone through. And it wasn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be. Thank goodness, because I had somebody to explain it to me, because if I didn't, I might have thrown my head through my computer. Because there was a few points where I said, if I didn't know this would have been frustrating. But it's been an experience, like uploading it and doing everything. That's just been, I don't mind doing it at all. I hired out my graphics, like my graphic designer is incredible. So thank goodness I will always have a graphic designer. I don't know. I praise them for being able to do what they can do. Like, this is what I'm talking about. People who can do different things that I can't do. I'm like, oh yes. Thank you. Thank you. But having a podcast has been extremely, not just empowering for other people, but also for myself. Like being able to come on and have a conversation with even like with other people that I've interviewed is incredible, because I get to connect with women from all over. And I think that's incredible.
That's really awesome. And I think you reach different people with a podcast than you would have otherwise.
Mm-hmm. I know that because I know a friend of mine wanted to do like a solo podcast, and then she said, but I don't know if I want to do a solo podcast now. She's like, I'm listening to everybody else do their podcasts and they're interviewing other people. And yes, they have their solo episodes. She's like, but I love that they're connecting with other people and it's not just their own conversation with themselves. Because I could probably talk forever on my solo episodes too, but I like being able to talk to someone, not just myself. It's nice being able to hear somebody else's reaction. And I've never had, which I'm also very grateful for, every episode, like every interview that I've had so far, they've gone so smoothly. They've been really good, and they haven't been that quote unquote awkward, or where you're just like, I don't know what to say, which is good because I don't want that. But I think that's why everybody that I reach out to, I've either like followed them for a while, I've connected with them, and I really feel like they have a strong message to share, which leads me into a question I have for you, that if there was moms who were needing advice in regards to starting their own business and like starting their own business and being at home, like what is a piece of advice that you would give them in regards to being able to do so?
Yeah. Ooh, okay. Good question. I think, a lot of moms that I meet have kind of an idea. Like if you pry enough, they have an idea of what they would do. Like if it was guaranteed it was going to be successful, or if no one would judge them or whatever. They're not truly drawing a blank. If you pry deep enough, there's an answer in there of what they would do. So what I would really encourage them to do is to really be brave and just put it out there, and to trust that if they try enough things, if they're willing to fail enough times, eventually they're going to hit the capacity of failures and like find success. Like there's only so many times you can fail before it does actually work out. And I think that's something most of us don't realize. Like we think, well, if I fail once or if I fail a handful of times, that means this thing doesn't work. And I always kind of mentally picture the creation of the light bulb and like thousands of tries, like how many of us are really willing to try something 1,000 times to see if it'll succeed? Probably not most of us, but you probably don't have to fail 1,000 times to get some traction with it. So I really just encourage them, try it. None of us has a guarantee. Just do it.
It's so true. None of us do have a guarantee, and failure is a part of life. People push failure away so often, and I always sit here and I wonder why. I remember as a child, not as a child, I would say like when I was a teenager in high school, I always had good grades as a kid. I never failed at things. And so I remember it was my graduation year and I slacked off and I was like, hi, I got this. I'm good. And I remember I got my one first failing mark, and it was soul crushing to me because I hadn't failed something yet really like I'm sure I failed other things during my life, but it wasn't something like this that really like gave me like this an emotional response. And all I thought was, oh my gosh, my dad is going to be so angry. I'm going to be grounded for the rest of my life. Holy crap. That wasn't the case. He ended up talking to me about how failure is a part of life and that there's lessons to be learned from them, and that there's no reason for me to allow this to break me down. All this should teach me is that I don't want to have this feeling anymore, and I'm going to push myself to not have this feeling. And whether I need help in this topic, whether I need to like reach out about something, that I can do that, and that I don't always have to do things alone. And so I think there's a big message to learn when you're failing at something. There is something for you to learn that you haven't learned yet that is going to empower you and what is going to make you successful. Like the word success is so different to everybody. It's the same with the word wealth. Wealth, a lot of people in regards to wealth, they view this as like financial wealth, where wealth is actually not just financial. It's actually all the possessions that you have in a home or the possessions that you have in life. And so if you actually look at everything in the room that you've purchased for yourself, your expansion, like you expand your mind of what you actually have been able to create for yourself. Because I remember sitting down doing this exercise. My coach is like, look around your home and tell me every single thing that you bought. I'm like, what? She's like, including dish soap. I'm like, dish soap? What? And she's like, yes, you bought it, didn't you? You bought it with money, didn't you? Well, that's a possession. Like, you bought that. It's like, what? I didn't even realize all these different things in my home that I was not utilizing, that I had purchased, that I had done. And I got so worked up in different things that I had quote unquote failed at. And I don't think we necessarily fail. It's just something we get to learn from and then utilize in the future. I don't know. I just have a very different view on failure. Failure is a big part of life. I feel like if you never fail in life, you're really lucky. I feel like we need to fail at things, even in regards to conversations, a conversation not going the right way. Some might see that as failing. There was something to learn. Like, you cannot control anything else besides you. That's it. So I think I go off on a lot of tangents, by the way.
Yeah.
I do.
It happens.
You're like,
I agree though about failure. I mean, failure is so important, and I think the more comfortable you can get with it, the more successful you're going to be, whatever that looks like.
100%. So I want to chat with you also about, because you have a Facebook community, which I absolutely adore and I love. And so I want to chat with it because I really feel like moms should be a part of it. So it's called Online Business Building Mamas. And I want you to talk to me about where that pull was to create that too, because I know we've talked about you like being an entrepreneur and stepping into that space and then creating your podcast, but also like you created this community. And what is the biggest, I'm going to say, what's the funnest and biggest moment you've had with this community?
Yeah. Okay. So I love this community so much. We are coming up on our 1 year anniversary very soon. I started it January 29th, 2018. And I don't know why the 1 year is such a big deal to me, but I've like fixated on it. I just feel like it's such a big milestone. I think there's a lot of people out there doing Facebook groups who think they have to have one and they don't really want to have one. And you can kind of tell that their heart is not in it. And so I just have always wanted mine to be a community and be more about the group than just me, and really bringing moms together and being in this together. I think in the welcome message that I post every week when we have our new members, I talk about it being a soft place to land in this whole process of building a business. So that was really the intention of it. I do a lot of things in there to try to get people engaging with each other, not just me, and not just having me be the only one posting. And part of that is letting go. Like, other people are going to promote themselves and other people are going to share stuff. And as long as it's not spammy, I let it be in there and let them share those things. So that's kind of the philosophy and why I created it. But I would love to have more people join. So if people are hearing this and they're like, wow, that's cool, you should join us.
Yes, I will definitely be I'll be taking the community in the show notes as well. Just because like I really believe in the community that you have. And I love that you talk about how there's people who have communities that aren't necessarily their heart's not in it. And that's like, that's okay. But if that's how you feel about it and your heart isn't in it, then reevaluate that decision. Like, it's okay to, if you had it and you thought there was this big spark, but then it went away, like, that's okay. Sometimes ideas do that and sometimes it happens. You know, I have a community as well and mine's just growing. And sometimes it's like, it takes a lot of patience when you're sitting there and you're just like, we can get so wrapped up in the numbers, but that's not necessarily what makes it or breaks it. That, like, because there's so many people who can be a part of a community that watch and don't do anything but simply watch. And they're like these silent parties. And then all of a sudden they message you and they're like, I've been watching you for a year and I want to work with you. And you're like, who? What?
It's so true.
It is. And so the numbers, I just want to say, if there's anybody on here who has a community and gets so wrapped up in numbers, I have 74 women in my group. But I do know that the women that are talking in this group are connecting together and they're talking with one another. And I only opened this community like a few months ago. So it takes time to build those things. But I also know that I don't just want anybody in the community either. Like, I wouldn't say I'm like biased, but I also, like, my community is for women, for online female entrepreneurs. So if you're a dude, I'm probably not going to accept you in the community for that reason.
Mine is the same. And when I did my welcome post one week, I was like looking through the names that pop up because Facebook auto populates for the welcome message. And I saw like Zach or something. And I was like, wait, what? Looked up this person and it was a dude. And I was like, how did you get in here? But I didn't actually contact him and just deleted him. No men allowed.
No. When I first launched like my community and my business, do you know how many men I had actually watching what I was doing compared to women at the time? And I don't know if I was like putting so much into like, maybe I was like leaning more into like my masculine energy or something, but it was just very different to me but they also get very curious. Like, when a woman steps into like this very like empowering space, men are like, ooh, what's she doing? Like, let me see this, because this isn't always the case. And then now it's just like a lot of women that pop up on my videos. There's every once in a while I have some of my guy friends and I'll be like, hey, but I'm like, message has nothing to do with you. I love you. Thanks for the support. But at the beginning, it was just, there was a lot of like men that I personally am friends with or family members of mine that would come on and were very interested about it. And I asked my coach one day, I'm like, how am I attracting like men? That's not what I'm here for. Like, what I'm here for is I'm trying to attract women in business. But I got all these like talking with all my like guy friends about this. It was very odd at the very beginning. I was just kind of like, what is going on?
They're probably just curious. That's funny.
Yes. And that's what I wrapped it up to be, that they were just curious. And I had a friend of mine reach out and he was like, I was just really curious as to what you're doing. And so I'm watching these, so don't be creeped out. I'm like, I'm not creeped out by you. If I have you on my Facebook, I have you there for a reason. Like, we're friends. I get it. But I love your community, and I definitely will be taking it in the show notes and everything. And so I definitely recommend people to go take a look at it, because like you said, like, it's a very open and a safe place to land for women. And there's like, even just the branding with it and the message through it, like everything about it is just very, very soft and very like cohesive. And so I think it's just it's very professional. That's the word I'm looking for. It's very professional and I like it. And so
I feel like we could go on another tangent about professionalism and authenticity.
I am like the tangent queen lately, where I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, I just went on like literally I did an interview 3 days ago, and we decided we were going to call it the tangent episode, because we both went on like 5 or 6 different tangents about things. And I was like, I love that she was there for it. She's like, hey, I'm here for it. Like, tangent number 1 to 5, I'm good. I talk a lot and I'm opinionated about things. So and it's definitely like, some people are like, oh, do you think you talk too much? I'm like, I'm not apologizing for the amount that I talk, because
I love bringing it up like that. Do you think you talk too much? Like, wow, way to be subtle.
I know. I'm like, I love to talk. And so I'm like, if somebody's offended by the amount that I talk, well, I don't know.
Then they can just X out of the window and find someone else.
Yes. Yeah. Exit right, please. Exit right. But on that note, before we end this, is there any other message that you want women, like mothers in the online space, to know? Is there anything else that you want them to leave them off with today?
Yeah. So what just popped into my head is that it's safe to be yourself. So kind of thinking back on, that idea of being authentic. And I do feel that that's one of those words that's losing its meaning for a lot of people. But something I always strive for is just being myself and not apologizing for it, not trying to be anything other than what I am. And sometimes the quirks come through. Sometimes I tell jokes that don't land because I'm really goofy and not everybody finds me funny. But I will laugh at myself even if no one else is. So I think you just have to find those things and really pull away the mask, and know the more that you can do that, the more you're going to become a magnet for the people who are really meant to work with you.
100%. I love that. I want to touch on authenticity before we go, because even this past week, I've had a lot of lessons, not in failure, but just a lot of lessons in communication with people, or just how women and men interact with each other sometimes, or how they feel about things. And like, I had a situation on my social media where all of a sudden it just blew up on itself, and people were, not necessarily, I would say the word I would call it is attacking like my self-worth and my integrity as a woman in the online space and as a mom. But I was very like, there's a way that you can handle things in an online space. Like, you can be extremely, patient and not apologize for what you're doing if you've never done anything wrong. Like, especially when you're talking about like the authenticity, I will not apologize if I have not done anything wrong. But I damn well will be right in that corner. If I have done something wrong, I will be the first person to say I messed up, because I value honesty and integrity. They're huge values of mine. And so when my social media blew up and I was attacked for plagiarizing, is what someone had said that I was doing, is I was plagiarizing their work. And I just remember waking up in the morning being like, what? What is happening today? I'm like, okay, let's ride this wave. Like, whatever happens, happen. And I made this like post because I was so not hurt by it, but I was just blown away that people will attack you for no reason when you haven't done anything wrong. And then it was like 10 women on all over my social media blew up on it, and I was getting messages from people, and they were like, what is happening? And I said, just let it go. I said, I'm not ashamed of anything that's going on. I said, because I'm standing in my truth, and this is what I am, and they can say anything they want to do. I said, but like, the way I'm going to show up is I'm going to show up as a woman of integrity to also teach my clients, like, if something like this happens to you, just trust it and just move through it. All of a sudden, all their comments were deleted and they were just like gone. I'm like, why? Okay, so life happens. Like, it was a situation that I was blown away from, that if you actually look back, all you see is my posts. Like, there's not all of this other blow up that happens, but like you can, there's like different ways to handle this situation. And this year ago me would have lost her marbles and would have been really angry and probably would have said some things that I shouldn't have said. And this time I remember sitting there, my husband was like, are you okay? And I said, I just need to breathe. Like, I just need to breathe and I need to figure this out, because I know that what is true and what isn't true. And I'm just going to sit here. I felt like I needed a bowl of popcorn and I felt like I just needed to watch it go by. And I was like, okay, whoosah, it's okay. And then it all went away. So like, if you show up truly as yourself, like, things will figure themselves out naturally. It doesn't, it can be effortless. Like, that was a big thing, is that day, it was effortless for me. No matter if somebody was attacking my credibility of who I was as a woman, as who I was as a mom, it didn't matter, because I know who I am, and the people who trust me and know me will also understand this. And so if you're a mom in business, if you're a woman, if you're listening to this, just be yourself, like, always, and do not apologize for anything that does not need an apology for. Like,
yes.
No, please don't, because you don't owe anybody an explanation for why you do what you do. You don't.
Yep. Yeah. Love it.
Went on another tangent. Literally, I'm gonna start calling my podcast the Tangents episodes. Gonna be what it is.
People know what they'll be getting when they are downloading a tangent episode.
Yes, but there's a lot of strong, like, opinions and points of views that happen throughout this podcast, and I think it's important to be talked about. Like, life lessons happen, and we're talking about being a woman of integrity, or even like a mother and working in the online space. These things can happen to you, but you can either let it define you and make you feel like you should quit, or you can move through it. Before, like a year ago, I would have been like, oh, I have to delete everything. I can't do this anymore. Not this year. I'm like,
down my
business. No. Literally, that's how it would have felt like before. If someone was attacking who I was, I would have needed this outside validation, or would have needed to prove something. And there was no room for that. Like, it's just what doesn't serve me anymore. I'm just like, okay, say what you need to say and carry on, keep scrolling. Like, we're in an online space, but I'm going to go on another tangent. So I want to say thank you for coming on the podcast and listening to my tangents. And because I love everything that you talked about in regards to being a mom, being a woman in the online space, and integrity and vulnerability, and all these things that we talked about today, and your business, your podcast, and the community that you have. I am truly inspired by you in a lot of different ways. And so it was truly a pleasure to have you a part of the podcast. And so I just want to say thank you again.
Thanks so much for having me on. I always love being a guest, but I love when it's situations like this and we can just have a real conversation. Like, I feel like this would have happened at a coffee shop, like over coffee, just chatting, mama entrepreneurs.
Yes. And that's what I aim for, is that when I'm on the podcast, is that if you were to be with me, this is how I would just have a discussion with you. I would go off on tangents. I would be very dramatic sometimes. I'd be very, not necessarily, there's a word I'm looking for, but I can't figure it out. So we're just going to move along. But I enjoy having conversations, and I enjoy having conversations with like-minded women and women who truly want to empower other women. And so it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. But before we go, where in the online space can everybody find you?
Yeah, so my website is samanthasifring.com. They can also find me in that Facebook group you mentioned, Online Business Building Mamas. And I am happy to have people friend request me on Facebook as well. Facebook's definitely my most active place. So however you want to connect with me there, I would love to be friends. Shoot me a message and let me know that this is why and that you're not just like a random.
Yeah.
Hey,
Hey.
heard you on the podcast.
And I will make sure that everything's in the show notes here too. So I'll tag you on all like platforms so that everybody can see you. And then, yeah. So thanks again for being on the podcast.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Talk to you later.
Sounds good. Okay, guys, I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye.